into the week 1 of the NFL football season. But without further ado, let's kick it off. Our first player that we are going to talk about today is going to be Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker in Seattle. Some coaching changes there, a lot of different movement and shakeup in Seattle, right? Geno Smith is no longer the quarterback there. New quarterback Sam Darnold is now in the building. We did also see an offensive coordinator change, right? I mean, Kubiak is in, Grubb is out after 1 year. And this is good news for Darnold, who, gets to stick with his OC with the Vikings. So familiar face there. Kenneth Walker, though, when you look at his movement right now in startups in Superflex, he's going at 65 overall. He's moved up from the 605, which was, at the end of March, and now he's the 506. So he's jumped up a full round. Matt, he's 24 years old. Is there anything in particular that you think might be the reason that he's moved up? Maybe with Darnold kind of coming in, people starting to settle in on that, get a little bit more of a feeling. Why do you think that ADP is moving, and what do you think about that spot that he's at currently?
Yeah, I think a lot of it relies on the transactions of the team. We kind of sit there and we look at who they brought in. We know they have Sam Darnold replacing Geno Smith. Sam Darnold's excellent and doing play action. Kenneth Walker is very good in the backfield. When he's back there and he gets time and gets opportunities, I think he's going to have a fantastic role in this offense. And what we know, too, is that there's wide receivers on the move. This is going to be a new look in Seattle. We don't have Tyler Lockett and we don't have DK Metcalf. Those have been two staples for this offense for many years. Obviously JSN had the breakout year this past year, so he's going to be stepping into that full-time role as a wide receiver. But Kenneth Walker has kind of been the staple in the backfield for them. We know what Charbonnet is, and Walker's biggest critique has mainly just been injuries. So if he can stay healthy and he's on the field, he's been a fantastic player, and he produces in fantasy. He scores touchdowns. He had 9 in his rookie year, 8 in 2023, and he had 7 last year in just 11 games. So I think when he plays, he's a fantastic person to throw in your lineup, and I'm absolutely comfortable if he's my RB1 in Dynasty. Now, certainly there's bigger names out there that you could go and get, but I think Kenneth Walker is just fine. You already mentioned he's 24 years old. He's got 2 more years on his rookie contract, so we'll see what happens with this Seattle team going forward. But for now, I don't really think there's a reason to doubt him as the running back for this team. This is a great class, but I don't expect them to add anyone unless it's very late into the draft. I would be shocked if they made a day 2 selection to add to this backfield with Charbonnet and Walker.
Yeah, I think if Pete Carroll was still here, it wouldn't surprise me adding more horses to that room, because that's just such a Pete Carroll thing. But yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, and the biggest thing for Walker is health, right? He played 11 games last year, 15 and 15, so he hasn't played a full season in the NFL once. And I think that the biggest concern for me is in those games that he has stepped out and Kenneth Walker has gotten his opportunities. I mean, Zach Charbonnet's had his opportunities. He's made the most of those opportunities. In the games, Arizona, Charbonnet had 38 fantasy points. He had 12 against the Jets. He had 13, 10, 9. I mean, that one big spike game right before the fantasy playoffs to really throw us into a tailspin. Week 14, he puts up 38 heading into the playoffs, and then Green Bay puts up 13. You're feeling like, okay, you know what? That's still a serviceable week. And then it kind of screws you, in the semis against Minnesota with just 3.3 fantasy points. So I think Charbonnet has shown that he's capable of carrying the workload and producing when given the opportunity. But I think your point is valid. And, Kenneth Walker is the guy there. He's talented. I know a lot of people liked Charbonnet coming out of college. And so, I felt like people, once he got drafted there, people were kind of, high on that landing spot and were really worried about Kenneth Walker's job security. But I think to your point, I think he has a pretty strong grasp on this starting spot. And unless this coaching staff, Clint Kubiak falls in love with Zach Charbonnet, I don't see it being anything less than a 60-40 split for Kenneth Walker, and I'm happy with that. Now, I want to ask you, right, looking at the next running back at the 66th overall pick. So the next pick is Derrick Henry. You have Kenneth Walker going 65. You have Derrick Henry going 66. If you're a contender, right, and you're in a good position to compete this year and years later, and you're in a startup, and say, the first few rounds, you're like, you know what, this is a team that I'm going to go for it. I'm going to compete. Are you taking Kenneth Walker over Derrick Henry, or is there any possible scenario that you would prefer Derrick Henry in a startup if you're competing?
Yeah, I think you make the best point. It all is going to be, am I contending? So if you're a contending team and you can get Derrick Henry, and let's say he's your RB2 and you pair him with Bucky or Brees or one of those bigger name guys, you've got an advantage because Derrick Henry averaged 19 points last year in half PPR. Kenneth Walker, in the games he played, which again, to his credit, he hasn't had a full season. So we need to see the health kind of get back in shape. But Walker averaged 14 points a game. So that's not terrible, but you are sacrificing almost 5 points between the two of them. If you had to pick who's going to score more touchdowns this coming season, I would pick Derrick Henry. Who's going to be on the better offense this upcoming season? I would pick Derrick Henry. So there's a lot of merit to saying you'd select Derrick Henry, and there's really no reason to say it's going to slow down because he's just proven year after year he's just good. He's different than any other running back. He's massive. I mean, the guy sometimes looks like a left tackle out there running the ball. So he's a fantastic player. And, unlike Walker, he doesn't really miss time. So I wouldn't fault you if you said you wanted to take Derrick Henry over Kenneth Walker. But if you're in any type of build and you're not guaranteed, or you're not sure if your team's going to be competing, or, you do some different trades that kind of make the board fall a little bit different, I would select Kenneth Walker just given the youth, but it's certainly team dependent, and I think you can make an argument either way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you make fair points, and a nice way to kind of close